Senator, it is a true honor to have you with us here today. Along with your colleagues, Senator Rosen, Ernst, and Booker, you came together in a bipartisan fashion to form the Senate Abraham Accords Caucus in January 2022. Bipartisan is somewhat of a rarity these days. Can you shed light on how and why the Abraham Accords bring so much of Congress together in this bipartisan fashion?
Yeah, I think people want to see the opportunity for people to be able to talk about hard issues together where there's commonality. Israel as an ally and as a friend is a commonality across parties right now. I want to be able to maintain that and to be able to keep that going. What was interesting was when the Abraham Accords were signed, obviously it was in the final days of the Trump presidency, and then the early days of the Biden administration, there was a lot of behind-the-scenes conversation in the State Department. Are we going to keep this going? Is this a Trump thing, or is this an America thing? And myself, Jackie Rose, and others kept coming back to the Biden State Department to say, it's not called the Trump Accords, it's called the Abraham Accords. This was designed to be able to grow, to be a functioning, living, breathing, how do we maintain normalization? So for Senator Rosen and I, especially in those earliest days on it, working through that, was very helpful, I think, to be able to say, let's take the politics and the party off of this, where it started, and talk about where it can go and what happens next. And I think it's been helpful.
So following up on that, how do we sustain and build on this bipartisan support that you and Senator Rosen were able to establish? And how do we harness that support into real momentum to assure that the accords remain a long-term policy priority for the United States?
Yeah, this should be a model that was set up that should keep growing. All of us have talked about multiple different nations around the world that have refused to be able to recognize Israel's right to exist and to say, how do we initiate normalization there? How do we initiate economic development, growth, investment, technology, all of those things? So for us, and for me in particular on this, I just won't talk for everybody on it. Obviously, you've got a lot of great folks that are coming in the moments ahead. I work very hard to be able to make sure the issue of Israel and the issue of Abraham Accords doesn't become a partisan thing. It is easy at this point to say this particular Democrat said that or that particular Republican said that. They, quote unquote, they think this. I'm working to be able to push that aside and to say for generations, we've got to be able to maintain the issue of friendship and relationship with Israel as a nonpartisan issue, not a bipartisan, as a nonpartisan issue, to say that is our ally, that is our partner in democracy, they share our values. We need to be able to work to be able to bring normalization to the area.
Senator, let me ask you about your constituency in Oklahoma. We've been all seeing polls over the last number of months about weakening support, weakening understanding, frankly, of Israel. Is that a situation that you're facing in Oklahoma, or is there continued support for this alliance that the United States has with the state of Israel?
There is continued support for Israel in Oklahoma. So if anyone's facing that in your state, there's plenty of land to buy in Oklahoma. Come open a business and come and live there. But there's continued strong support. Now, are there disagreements on things with what's happening in Gaza and those things? Of course there are. That's a normal part of a conversation. Exceptionally strong support for Israel that's in Oklahoma, and we're very, very proud of that.
Senator, the October 7th attacks, as I was briefly mentioning, and the subsequent war in Gaza have tested the resilience of the Abraham Accords. None of the three countries that we are celebrating, really, have backed away from the Accords, but it's been a quieter period, of course, and no one is bragging about the Abraham Accords in these countries because there's such popular dissatisfaction. And I think confusion, and I think disappointment. But how do we assess, the durability of these accords during crisis periods, and what mechanisms should be built in to maintain cooperation even during periods of regional tension?
Yeah, so let me hit that a couple ways. The worst time to make friends is when you need one. We all know that. The Abraham Accords created a moment to start friendships, normalization, business exchange, where business leaders are talking to other business leaders. It's not just government to government, it's person to person in different areas. And so when Hamas ruthlessly attacks Israel on October the 7th, 2 years ago, when that occurs, those friendships were already there. There was already a dialogue that was in place where people that were in the UAE could call friends they knew in Israel and say, we are not Hamas. That is not us. We also disagree with that. So let's figure out how we're going to maintain this ongoing conversation. it's terrible to start that conversation when you're in crisis. It's much better to be able to initiate early. That was the great strength of it. And everyone did pause and take a deep breath and say, are all of the Abraham Accords countries going to walk away from this? And that did not happen. We can talk about Sudan. That's a whole different issue in the initial formation of this. But for Morocco, for UAE, for Bahrain, they continue to be able to stay engaged. They said, hey, we need to be able to back up and be less public, but we're going to continue to be able to talk in private. And many of the harsh statements that came out from other countries didn't come out from those three. There's a difference there on that.
It's really a united front against extremism, against terrorism and extremism. And
It is. And that dialogue continues to occur. And again, we're not in full agreement on every area. It's 4 different nations with 4 different perspectives. Morocco and the UAE don't agree on everything. Okay, so we don't have to agree on everything, but we should agree on normalization, on economic development, on trade and tourism, on opportunities for both countries to be able to succeed, and for just the sharing of ideas. That should be normative on it, and it should be something that is actually expanded. And one of the areas that I've worked on a lot is, what's the benefit of being in this club? The United States needs to make a clearer statement to the world that if you join the Abraham Accords, this is what happens to trade. We change the rules on what we do on trade, on tariff, on relationships. It's different for this group, so wouldn't you like to join this club? I think that's something that we've yet to define clearly as an American government and as a State Department and in our commerce, and I think it's an area that is unfinished business.
Important. Last question, because I know you have a hard stop, Senator, and you've been very generous with your time. What are the obstacles that we're looking at to advancing the Abraham Accords Circle of Peace?
Well, let me count the ways. It's easier to find where there aren't logs in the road than where there are logs in the road at this point. Obviously, everything that's happening right now with Hamas and their actions and holding terrorists, that was the goal. I mean, I'm one of those folks. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I think it's pretty clear Hamas took action at the time they took action because they saw normalization coming with Saudi and with other areas, and so they tried to find a way to be able to interrupt that, and were successful. If long-term this brings other nations demanding a Palestinian state and other countries, Hamas was successful. That can't be so. So I think one of the biggest challenges right now is communicating to other nations, don't show Hamas they were successful based on what your behavior changes now and your relationship with Israel in the future. Don't allow that terrorist extremist group to be the one that speaks for you and your nation. If you say you oppose extremism, then don't support their methods. So I think that's one of the areas, but that's a hard conversation to have among friends. I think it's also difficult because we have broken relationships with multiple nations. That means sitting down with people you don't normally sit down with and saying, how do we get past this? And those are not simple conversations. They're not simple conversations in the Senate. They're not simple conversations among nations as well. But those things need to be done. The opportunity to have economic trade and development, as I mentioned before, for us as a nation to develop a package of what it means to be a part of this club, I think helps smooth some of that. And so that's part of the things that we can do now.
Senator, thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your leadership on all of this for so many years and going forward as well. We look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you. Glad to be the kickoff. So I was the practice round for you as well. You'll enjoy a great day. I saw the agenda for the rest of the day. It was a great day for you. So thanks for allowing me to come.